Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 4. If you join me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going through my sheet for this week. We'll kind of talk through each player that is relevant in my standards at least. So we'll talk about whether that they would be a cash game play, a GPP play, a GPP pay down option, kind of a dart throw, anything else like that. And then a little bit whether or not I'll be in line with the field, overweight to the field, underweight to the field, kind of slightly overweight, slightly underweight, everything good like that. That is also in the middle column as well, so you have that reference point. So definitely feel free to use it. Obviously, this cheat is up on my Patreon page, a very small monthly donation over there. It will be updated as the days move along, but we do have most of the injuries, at least for most of these teams at this point in time. I have a couple other practices because of the staggering of CFL scheduling. But with that being said, we'll get into it with the Elks and McLeod Bethel Thompson at quarterback, $9,500. GPP option, I'll probably be in line with the field on him. Might ultimately end up being like slightly underweight just because he had the 4 touchdown performance last week. So I could see some people kind of flocking to him a little bit more this week. And then at running back, we got Kevin Brown, $6,600. GPP, I listed a question mark behind it. He hasn't been that great so far this season, probably in line with the field. So, he's probably a guy that's going to come in like 3 or 4% of lineups probably this week, I would assume. But I'll be in line probably with that for the most part. And then we have Javon Leake as the other running back, $4,500. I think he's an interesting paydown option, honestly. And probably going to be slightly overweight to him. I'm not sure what his ownership is going to be, but the fact that you get his return yardage now, and he's a really good returner, and he's actually seen some work in the passing game, makes him a little bit more interesting than he would have been like last year with Toronto. So definitely do like that upside with him. Gavin Cobb, wide receiver, is going to be available for this game. He's listed on the depth chart. He was previously on the 6-game injured list, so nice to see him back. And then in terms of the other wide receivers, we got Hergy Mal out this week due to a hamstring injury, which is kind of a big blow to them because he's played really well to start the season. So we're going to be looking at a lot of Curly Gittens Jr., Eugene Lewis, and Dylan Mitchell this week overall. Curly Gittens Jr., $5,900 GPP option there, slightly overweight to the field on him this week. Eugene Lewis, $6,400 GPP option. I think he had his first good week so far last week, so I would be in line with the field on him. And then Dylan Mitchell. For a lot of people, they've been following my CFL DFS content for a while. I'm not a big Dylan Mitchell guy, so $5,500 GPP option if you want to get there. Probably be close to in line with the field, maybe slightly underweight just because of his big performance last week. So maybe the field will be a little bit higher on him just in general, but he's definitely a viable option this week. My biggest thing with him is he's just relatively inconsistent, although he's been a little bit more consistent so far this season. And then for the Elks defense, $3,500. I had them as a paydown option. I had overweight question mark just because going against the Lions, Vernon Adams Jr. is kind of banged up at this point in time. So I could see a world where they are a viable paydown option that ends up being a decent play. I don't think they have the worst defense in the world. So definitely in play this week. Probably, in line with the field, maybe slightly overweight. We'll just have to see, though. And then we move down to the BC Lions with Vernon Adams Jr. at quarterback. He is $11,500. By far the most expensive quarterback this week. He's a GPP option just because of the upside that he can have on any given slate. Although he didn't practice Tuesday due to abdominal issues, so he was technically listed as questionable. He is listed as the starter on the depth chart, so it sounds like he should play, but maybe he's a little bit limited in this game, and if it starts to bug him, there is a little bit more risk than there would be otherwise. At running back, we got William Stanback, who's up to $7,500. Really hasn't been super involved in the passing game either, so GPP option if you want to get there, probably going to be slightly underweight to the field. I don't know how high the field's actually going to end up being on him overall. And then for their wide receivers, Javon Catoy returns this week. He's $3,300. He was battling a hamstring injury. I'm not really getting to him just in general because, coming off that injury could be a little bit limited just in general. But if you want to use a dart throw on him, definitely does make some sense. And then Travis Fulgham was cut this week. So I do have in where to play. Do not play because he's not on the team anymore. I know for some people, if you follow the NFL, you're at least somewhat familiar with Travis Fulgham because he had that one decent 4-game stretch with the Eagles, but he's not on the team anymore. Alexander Hollins at $10,000 though, cash game option. I'll probably be slightly overweight to him just because he was already 40% last week, so I probably go as high as 50-60% on Alexander Hollins because he's been the best wide receiver arguably in the CFL all season. And then there's Justin McInnis, GPP option, probably be overweight to him once again this week as well. He's had a really solid season to start off. And then Stanley Berryhill, GPP paydown option, $2,500, was pretty productive his first week for the team, so maybe slightly overweight on him. Don't think he's necessarily the cash game play that you'd like to see at $2,500, but still has some pretty decent upside at that. And then for that Lions defense, $4,600, they're a pretty decent defense still. Probably be in line with the field on them. There is some upside to be had. There also is some significant downside because they've been a little bit more inconsistent this season. And then we move down to the Montreal Alouettes. Cody Fajardo at quarterback, $9,400. GPP option, probably in line with the field. The field's probably going to be higher on him this week after that big performance last week, which I do wish I had a little bit more of him. Typically, I'm a little bit overweight to Cody Fajardo just in general, but with all that being said, probably be in line with the field this week overall. I think there's an interesting quarterback situation this week. I think you can play a lot of different guys. And then Walter Fletcher, running back, $6,300, back-to-back solid weeks for him, so I'll probably be overweight to him as a GPP option this week. Not really interested in any of the other running backs or fullbacks for this team. We move down to the wide receivers. Tyson Philthott, $5,700, still a cash game option for me. I'll be overweight to him. You could argue maybe it's a GPP option just because he's up to $5,700 now, but he probably should be closer to like where Julian Grant is at this point in time. And then speaking of Julian Grant at wide receiver, $7,400 GPP option. Maybe in line with the field, maybe slightly underweight to the field. We'll see where the field also ends up on him. But he had two pretty good back-to-back weeks, so could have some upside there, although I don't think they're going to throw the ball quite as much this week, but I could be wrong. And then Reggie White Jr. played his first game since 2022 last week and scored 2 touchdowns. He actually looked really good in that game. So $2,500 cash game option if you want to go that way. Probably be overweight to the field on him this week overall. Not really interested in any of these other wide receivers. Reggie Cubasso, probably mispronouncing his name. He's out due to a hand injury, but he's been more like a reserve player, special teams guy just in general. And then for that Dallas defense, $4,100. GPP option probably in line with the field against the Argonauts this week. There is some upside to be had there, but there is some downside at the very same time as well. And then for that Argonauts team, Chad Kelly is obviously still suspended, so I'm not going to talk about him. Cameron Dukes at quarterback, $10,000. GPP option, probably slightly underweight to the field because I think the field's going to be pretty high on him this week. I could be wrong, but it just feels like that's going to be the case after his two pretty good performances to start the season. And then at running back, we got Kadeem Carey at $8,700. GPP option, probably in line with the field. He was a little bit banged up in practice due to a groin injury, so technically he's listed as questionable, but he should be good to go. Deonta McMahon obviously had the long touchdown run last week, $3,100. Potential paydown option there. Obviously, if Carey's unable to go, you could probably play either one of the backup running backs as well. And then for the wide receiver room, I'm not that interested in most of these guys. DeMonte Coxey would be my favorite at $5,100. GPP option, slightly overweight. Tavares Daniels, I'll be underweight too. He did practice in full both times this week, so he should be available with that groin injury. And then DeJuan Brissett is going to be out this week due to a knee injury. So we'll see what it looks like, but they've been really mixing and matching that wide receiver, and Cameron Dukes is really spreading the ball around, so nobody truly standds out so far this season for this Argonauts receiving room. And then for the Argonauts defense, probably in line with the field is a GPP option, $3,900. Not a bad price tag for them whatsoever, although the Alouettes have played really well to start off the season. Then we move down to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So Zach Collaros, $10,200. Underweight to the field on him because he's just not been good so far this season, especially for DFS purposes. Last week was probably his best performance of the season, but, Chris Stuvler stole 3 touchdowns at the same time as well. Brady Oliveira, $9,200. GPP option. I think I'll probably be slightly overweight to him this week. It's a good price tag just in general. With the wide receiver room banged up as it is, he's probably going to be a big part of their game plan this week overall. Then speaking of those wide receivers, Nick Nowitzki, $8,900. GPP option, probably overweight to him this week just because he's kind of like the last big man standing on this team. And then Drew Wolters-Ziski is kind of a GPP paydown option of $4,200. Probably going to be overweight to him as well. You could also go with Ontario Wilson as kind of a dart throw if you want to go that direction. But big news this week, Dalton Shane is dealing with a knee injury. He will be placed on the 6-game injured list according to their head coach. And then Kedrick Wheatfall, guy that had a pretty good performance 2 weeks ago, got hurt last game and is going to be on the 6-game injured list as well. They did promote Jeremy Murphy, who's not in DraftKings, so it's going to be an interesting situation for this group just in general. At Blue Bombers defense, I consider them a GPP option going against Calgary. Obviously, you could get that Jake Meyer bad game in there, but at the same time, this Blue Bombers defense has not been good this year, so I'm still going to be underweight to them, but do see the potential upside. And then speaking of Jake Mayer for the Stampeders, $9,000 GPP option, slightly overweight to them just because that Blue Bombers defense has not been great to start off this season. In terms of running back, Dedrick Mills, GPP option, $7,300, probably in line with the field. I don't think the field's going to be too high on him. He is a guy that I do like quite a bit on a personal note, but I still think there is a little bit of upside to be had with him. Peyton Logan was moved to the practice squad, so still 2 running backs once again for this team. And then in terms of their wide receivers, I think it's kind of like the big 3 once again. You could probably throw Clark Barnes up in there and call the big 4 if you really wanted to. Reggie Bigleton, a slow start to the season, $9,400, GPP option. In line with the field, maybe slightly overweight to the field on him this week. I think he's a good guy to mix and match in some lineups if you want to get that way or if you want to stack with Jake Mayer. And then Cam Eccles-Looper, $7,900 in line with the field as the GPP option. He's had a pretty strong start to the season. He had obviously a good preseason as well. And then Mark and Michelle, the veteran, $3,800. Potential paydown option if you want to get there. And potentially slightly overweight to him this week just in general. For that Stampeders defense, they are $3,600. I think they got a decent defense. GPP paydown option, slightly overweight to them as they do go against the Blue Bombers who are really trying to figure things out to start off the season. And then we move down to the final game, which is the Tiger Cats and the Redblacks. And this is going to be a very interesting game just because both these defenses are not that great. And for the Tiger Cats, Bo Levi Mitchell, $9,300, GPP option, overweight to the field on him. I am not very confident in this Redblacks defense. I think it could be a big week for Bo Levi Mitchell and company. James Butler, $9,800, GPP option if he plays. Probably in line with the field if he plays. But he didn't practice Wednesday due to head injury, so we'll see if he's able to go this week or not. If he's not, then we're going to see Anthony Leitry as kind of a paydown option, and then probably Greg Bell would get some run as well. And then we move down to the wide receivers. Shamar Bridges, only $4,900 still. He is by far a cash game option, overweight to the field on him once again. This wide receiver room is actually pretty good just in general, but Stephen Dunbar Jr. GPP option at $5,200, slightly underweight to the field on him this week. He had the good week 2 weeks ago, but didn't really do as much last week. And then Luther did practice in full on Wednesday due to his ankle injury, previously placed on the 6-game injured list. We'll see whether or not he's able to go this week or not. And then we have Keandre Smith, $4,700 GPP play. And I consider myself slightly overweight to the field on him this week. He's played really well to start off the season. And in the past, I thought he was kind of a guy that was underutilized. And, he did have some pretty good performances when given the chance. So not surprised by this at all. Desmond Patton had a pretty good week last week, $3,700. If they still need to use him, could make some sense. Pay down option there in line with the field probably as well. And then for Tim White, $9,900. I'm just not getting to him. It's been a really, really bad start to the season for Tim White so far overall. So underweight to the field on him. It's kind of unfortunate when you have a player as good as him, but the talent around him has actually risen up quite a bit at the same time as well. And then Tyler Terniski, who has been on the active roster the past 2 weeks, $2,500. Limited on Wednesday due to a hip injury, so we'll see whether or not he's able to go or not. But if Luther's back, he might just go back to the practice squad either way. And then for that Ticats defense, $3,700. Pay down option if you want to get there in line with the field going against the Redblacks. I think there could be some upside there, but like I said, I don't think either one of these two defenses are very good at the same time as well. So when we get down to the Redblacks, Drew Brown, $8,900, potential GPP option, slightly overweight to the field just because of the matchup. Hopefully he doesn't lose his job in the middle of the game. That is kind of the concern there, with Dustin Crum and obviously Tyree Adams back now. So it could be kind of interesting. And for some reason, DraftKings has Pigrome listed as one of their quarterbacks. Although, according to everything I can find, he's not listed on their roster whatsoever. So that's kind of weird, honestly. Raquel Armstead, $6,200 GPP option if you want to get there in line with the field. Maybe slightly overweight just because it is a better matchup. I know he struggled last week, but they were down a lot. And the Montreal defense has actually been pretty good against the run so far this season. And then in terms of the wide receivers, mainly getting to Justin Hardy, overweights the field on him at $9,100. He is by far their best wide receiver. Braylon Addison, kind of a pay down option if you want to get there, slightly overweight to the field at $2,700, which probably isn't going to take too much at the end of the day. And then for that Redblacks defense, $4,200 is just way too much, so I will definitely be underweight to them. Probably not even getting to them this week overall. Obviously, the only upside you have there is if Bo Levi Mitchell starts throwing too many interceptions, which happened last week, which is probably the only reason this Redblacks defense is boosted to $4,200. But with that being said, that's kind of what I do have in terms of my sheet for this week. As always, if you have any questions related to CFL DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then with that being said, this sheet is up on the Patreon page. It will be updated as we do get more news. The depth charts will be posted to both Patreon and the comment section of this video as well for all 8 teams playing this week. And then if there's any other major breaking news, I'll leave that down in the comments of this video as well. But with that being said, if you were brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have the MLB DFS Core Pick live stream Monday through Friday, 4:30 Central Time, 5:30 Eastern Time. So if that's something you're into, definitely be sure to check that out as well. And then my CFL DFS video, this video coming out once a week, typically on Wednesdays. I know next week, with it being the 4th of July, it will be coming out Thursday morning. So be on the lookout for that. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for Prize Picks, Parlay Play, and BetUS. If you're a brand new user on any one of those 3 sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match. I believe it's up to $2,500. And I know I seen recently on their thing, they're doing it for the first 3 deposits. But look a little bit more into that. Definitely a lot of great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter which day you're watching this on. A great weekend overall, and some pretty good luck in CFL DFS for week number 4.